Welcome to another Joy Connection. I'm so excited to be having this opportunity to have a joy conversation with Miss Hollie Taylor, who is the founder, the director, the person who has developed her own entertainment business, 1016 Entertainment Radio. And so I'm so excited to be with her, but she wears a lot of hats. Like she's the co-host of a wonderful podcast, the Why Me Project, which I'll have her tell us more about. And she's also the station manager and host of Joy. And so it's so cool to me that I get to talk to somebody who works for a company that's Joy, but also does all things entertainment in her life to bring others joy. So Hollie, welcome to Joy Connection and being able to just share your story, what you do, what you find joy in, how joy gets passed on, how all of those things, because we talk all things joy. And as people know who have been following this, my favorite verse, or one of them, my mantras, is the joy of the Lord is your strength. And so this is why I like to talk about joy, because there's so many people that need strength. And I don't know what other way to give it to them than to point them to the Lord. And so we're here talking all things joy so that we can be strengthened as a community, strengthened as a body of Christ and people. And I know that what you do with your life spreads some joy. So Hollie, welcome to Joy Connection this evening.
Thank you so much. That's quite the introduction. I appreciate that.
Well, you do all of those things. And so I have to tell people who you are and then let you tell the rest of who you are.
Yeah, well, I am the station manager at Joy Radio in Toronto, have a show called Good Company. I also do the podcast, as you mentioned, for Why Me Project. I actually think it's more of those long form interview parts of my job that I really love, because you get to dive into the stories of other people and their ups and their downs, and you just get to hang out. So I love what I do, all aspects of it. And then, of course, working with artists through 1016 Entertainment and helping them achieve some of their goals. Helping them achieve some of their goals and seeing them excited about what God is doing in their life. That gives me joy as well.
Well, it sounds to me like almost everything you do is about helping others tell their story and sharing in the story, because God keeps us connected, and it's our stories that blend with each other, our stories that encourage one another, our stories that help us go, well, if he or she can, I can, or in any way do, fulfill a life goal or make it through a difficult time. So I love how it is that God has said to you, Hollie, you might be wearing all of these hats, but really I'm equipping you to be able to help other people as you live out your own purpose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. So tell us about all of those things, like the 1016, the Why Me podcast, the there was something else that you mentioned. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But just, you have all of these things you do. Tell us about what it is you do and what brings you the most joy in doing them.
Honestly, all of them bring me joy. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't give you joy, and if the joy of the Lord is your strength, where are you pulling your strength from? Like, I've always felt from an early age, actually, true story. I used to work at a fast food restaurant, and I did the morning shift. I was the swing manager, and so I remember getting up early. No one's awake. I lived in Sherwood Park, just outside of Edmonton, and so it's dark. It was winter. I have to walk to work because we had one vehicle in my home, and I just thought, this is the worst. Like, I am not loving this. I am working here so I can save up money and go to Europe, and that was my motivation in doing this job, was just to get that paycheck. And I just dreaded putting on my grease smelling button-up shirt and my pants, and like, you left work and you just like, I just feel so greasy. And so I was walking to work one day, and I just had this moment where I just thought, if I ever feel like this on my way to work, I know that's the end of the road for me at that business. I don't want to feel like this my whole life. This is the worst. Why bother? And I then shortly after heard that quote, do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
So that was kind of the beginning of me really searching different avenues that wouldn't necessarily bring me joy, but I felt fulfillment in them as though I was serving God through these vocations. Because for me, that's what gave me joy. And so I hopped onto the radio train and I was working at a mainstream station. And the idea of waking up just to have good ratings also didn't sit well with me. The instability of that, you have a bad book, and you've got no job, or it's just the media. It's a tough, it's a competitive industry. It's not for the faint of heart. They have incredible reach and impact, and there's definitely incredible people of faith within that. But it just wasn't what was powering me. I wasn't really excited about that, and so I really pushed to get into Christian radio, and I probably irritated every last fiber of the man who eventually hired me and got me my into radio. I would call almost weekly. Hey, any job openings yet? No, cool, good chat. I'll call you later. And I would. And so finally, a news position opened up. And I am not a news person. I wouldn't say I'm the
Took it, didn't
strongest.
you?
Pardon me?
I said, but you took it, didn't
I
you?
took it. It was my in. I cried every day for about 1 to 2 months,
Wow.
and they realized news wasn't my thing,
Wow.
and they kept me around. That's a huge miracle. I just did other things and then eventually found my way on the on-air fun side of radio. And I mean, I get to listen to music and talk for a living, and I love that.
Wonderful. Like,
Yeah,
who wouldn't like that? Like,
yeah,
I think that's cool. Like, because it's not even just music, it's Christian music. So
yeah,
you get to worship while you work. Right? You're listening to things that are encouraging your soul, you're listening to things that are encouraging your spirit, you're talking to people. Like, who wouldn't love, well, some people wouldn't love it, but I think that's amazing. I grew up grade 9, or maybe it was grade 10, when you were allowed to work, and I worked in the Christian bookstore all through high
nice.
school and all through um, uh, university, and even a little bit afterwards, until I got a teaching job, and then went into teaching. And then while I was teaching, I went into um, pastoring and ministry. And then now here we are doing a whole bunch of things in ministry. But it's
Hmm.
so funny because I lived to go to work, because I was a singer and a soloist and a worship leader. And I could, people loved coming into the store because I could tell them where they could find good music. I could
Yes.
tell them. So it's the same for you. You're listening to things, and you can tell people where to go to get drink, and you can tell people all of these things. And this is your day job. This is this is
Yeah.
what you do.
Yeah. And the irony is, so remember how I hated doing the morning shift at the fast food location? I spent 10 and a half years doing the morning show in radio. And my husband can attest to this. My daughters can attest to this. Johnny, who was the host of the show that I co-hosted for those 10 and a half years, can attest to this. I am not a morning person.
Wow.
He knew once I came into the office, I needed about an hour and a coffee
And a coffee.
to wake up before I could have like an actual good conversation.
See, I am a morning person. I wake up out of my bed and up you go. I'm 6
Ah,
away. It would annoy people. And
I envy you. I
like,
do.
we have all of our different gifts, right? Like, but
Yeah.
when I thought of you saying, I went for 10 years to the fast food place, and yes, I would hate to be feeling greasy and oily and whatever, but I was just more thinking of, because you said you grew up in Edmonton, or
Mhm.
I was thinking more of getting up early in the morning, trudging through the snow and the
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
That's what I would hate. And by the time I got to the restaurant, I'd be like so happy that I was now somewhere warm.
No, it was
So
just
my
like
picture of what you hated and what I would hate were two different
the
things.
walk of pain and cold to a job that I felt unfulfilled in. It was just a recipe for just not feeling content.
And yet, then God put you at the radio station that you couldn't wait to get into, but then quickly realized this is not for me. But I just love how God uses our journeys to prepare us for what it is that we are going to be doing. I'm sure, as much as that wasn't necessarily where news was what you wanted to do, but the very fact that you were in secular and worked there was training ground. So there are times that God places us in places that are part of the journey towards the
Hmm.
actual fulfillment of, because I know there are people listening who are saying, well, that's really good for you and easy for you to say, I decided I was only doing this, and choose something you love to do and you'll never work a day in your life. But I don't have that option, but
Yeah.
I can't do that. Or that's easy for you to say, but that's not easy for. What would you say to encourage those people that worked for you in the fast food, or in the 2 months that you cried when you shouldn't have been doing, that, or just in the secular where you were still calling somebody up daily? Because what that tells me is that you knew where your goal was and you were persistent about it. But it
Yeah.
also tells me, what, there are places that God puts us and we don't know how long he's going to put us there. How do we still live in joy in those spaces?
Yeah, that is such a great question because so much of that has to do with your perception,
Yeah.
and it has to do with that space where you are waiting. And waiting is tough. My kids have a book, and that's what's called Waiting is Hard. And it's about Gerald and Piggy. And Piggy has a great surprise for Gerald, and he tells him early in the day. And Gerald the elephant is just waiting and waiting and all day, and he's getting frustrated. And he just goes through the whole range that we go through even as adults, where you're like, okay, yeah, you got a good surprise. Cool, God. I'm here. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still waiting. Oh, sweet mercy, I am still waiting. I cannot wait anymore. And then people say things like, don't worry, God's timing's not our timing. And you're like,
The
if I
Christian,
wasn't a Christian person right now.
I don't know what you would be experiencing. Right? We mean well, we really
We
do.
do. We do. Like, I think that's toxic positivity, possibly, but whatever. That's another conversation. Um, but then the end of the book, you know, it's dark, and Gerald, this elephant's like, you made me wait all day. Now it's too dark to see anything. But what the pig wanted to show the elephant was all of the stars in the sky that he couldn't have seen if it was daytime. So I like that story because it's just such a great reminder that even in the dark phases of our lives, we can still have something worth celebrating or having joy over. And it's that whole saying, like, I choose joy. It's a choice. But when you know you're in God's will or plan for your life, uh, you will be able to find joy in the little ways. And it might be the fact, like, if your spiritual gift is giving, or that's your love language, maybe you're in an office that you don't like, but maybe there's somebody that you know also doesn't like it. And so you can write them a little card. You can
Right.
give them something. You can find joy in any circumstance. Sometimes we just have to look a little harder and just be a good steward with what you have. That was one thing my grandmother always told me was, anything that you have, be a good steward of it. So maybe you don't love where you live, maybe you don't love the car you drive, but be a good steward of it. Take good care of it. It's what you have. And just, even though it's tough, just try to honor those things that you do have and be grateful for it. Because when you have that posture of gratitude, it does shift your attitude. All the cliches are cliches for a reason.
Reason, right? They came from somewhere,
Exactly. It's true. And even science shows, right? Like, if you can even fake laugh for 10 seconds a day, you will feel better. You've
That's
tricked
right.
your body. So
Yeah.
it's just about being like, God, why am I here? Maybe you don't have the answer for me right now, or maybe I'm not ready to hear the answer. So just, can I just be a good steward and just find things I enjoy in this season?
You had a very smart grandmother,
I did.
because truly there's something you said, even just in being a good steward, but there was something you said about, if you're in an office or if you're in a place that you don't like and you know that there's someone else that doesn't like that, maybe you can write them letters, maybe you can. And what I got from that is that no matter where we are, there's joy to be found in serving, because that's what exactly you were encouraging. Part of being a good steward is being able to say, no matter where it is that the Lord has put me, let me serve you.
Hmm.
Let me serve you right here. And how would you like me to serve you? And although I'm not where I want to be, there are stars I can see.
Yes.
Beauty that you're developing in me or in others. And so I just love that. I love the idea because I've read it many times, when I've looked up things that, joyful people do. One of the highest things and one of the keys is they serve.
Hmm.
It's not just about us, but their joy gets filled and joy gets to be contagious in our serving. And who are we serving first? We're serving the Lord and then serving others. And so I love that you shared that idea of, you know, even if you're not truly where it is that you're going, and then that story, we always learn a lot from children's stories, don't we?
We do. We do. I think that's why God gave me kids. I wasn't going to have kids. I was going
Okay.
to be an auntie or have
By
fish
choice, by choice, you were
by
just like, I have
choice.
to have kids.
Yeah.
And
I was
God,
like, And God's like, actually, Holly, you have more to learn, like patience.
but he also might have been saying, actually, Holly, you have a whole lot to give.
Hmm.
It's a little of
Hmm.
both. Like,
Yeah.
he loaned those precious gifts to you, and you are serving them and getting lots of joy out of it. And I'm sure very tired too. I mean, I have my teenagers today that I was just like, dear God, help me to see the good you're doing in them because, that's how I'm
Yeah.
feeling today.
Yeah.
So, and I had to go, okay, God, you loaned them to me. So yes, I could have patience, but
Hmm.
thank you that I was able to spend some time with them in the car today. Like, just,
Right? I'm so grateful for them though.
yeah,
And that's the thing, like you don't necessarily know what you need.
yeah,
God knows what you need. And
right.
maybe you have to be in that season where you're just not loving it. Maybe there's something in that season that you need. And by focusing on the things that you don't like and having that feeling of I'm just here.
Yeah,
Because I've been there before.
yeah,
But if you can focus on maybe there's another focus in the situation that I should be looking towards. Obviously, it's going to be God, but like reveal what the good is in this situation. And yeah, you never know what God has in store even in those days where you just feel like you are waiting.
well, like you said, you know attitude is determined by our gratitude, and
Hmm.
so even in hard seasons, you said we had to choose to
Hmm.
have joy. And even in those hard seasons when we don't feel it, it's not about our feelings and it's not about happiness that comes and goes, but joy is rooted in the fact that we know God's doing something and we need strength, right? So gratitude will help us to fill our joy tank so that we can put up with the jobs and put up with the children and put up with the waiting and put up with wherever it is that we're at.
Yeah. Because if
Yeah,
you're stuck there, you might as well have a good time while you're there.
right. If you're stuck there, you might as well. It's just like, I hate the rain, but if I sing in the rain, I feel a little happier.
Exactly. And then I realized, oh, I have great curly hair in the rain. So there we go. Now I just have curly hair.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm just like, God, I really wish you would have told me that I should have just left it curly instead
Yeah.
of investing
Yeah.
the effort. Then I would have enjoyed it more. But God is God, so it
Ironically, though, I wonder if he's like, I did. You just weren't listening.
maybe, and there's a key too. We can find joy by tuning in, listening to God. and
Hmm.
and I just get, let's go back to your story a little bit, but that persistence, I mean, it was sort of your desire, and like you said, it probably drove them crazy that you called every day. But tell us about how it is that you never gave up in calling, and really, did they act like they were annoyed every day? Because at some point, at some time, they were like, Holly, we have something for you.
Yeah, right. Well, it wasn't every day, but it was pretty frequent. And I just wanted to keep the conversation going. And I just knew there are limited options. And I just wanted them to know that I was serious about it because I just felt like that was my next step.
This was
I couldn't imagine staying in the mainstream media. I really wanted to work in the Christian realm, and I just went for it. I was also young, so a little more energy, I guess. But I don't think that it was um Yeah, I don't think that they didn't like that I was consistent. I think I hope I was just consistent enough so that when there was a spot, they said, you know what, we'll give you a shot. Let's see how this goes.
Yeah. So what did you do in those 2 months that you cried to change your attitude, to strengthen you? Like, because you didn't know it was going to just be 2 months, right?
Yeah.
You just knew when you started, this is not for me. And yet you were still doing it. And, it's that idea of be careful what you ask for.
Yeah, right?
But can you see that, God used those 2 months to prepare you for who you are, what you're doing now?
Mhm.
And how was that?
Yeah, so I honestly, I talked to my mom a lot about it.
Oh, our moms, we
Having
love mommy.
having supports and mentors is super important, and I just focused on like life after work or finding things during the day that weren't news related that I enjoyed doing and just trying to like live in that pocket and just do the news, feel gross and sad afterwards and and then just hey, just go on with the next day. And I was fortunate because they noticed that I wasn't succeeding and they were bold enough to say, hey, this isn't working, but we like you and what you bring to the table. So let's just figure things out. So I think it was just an all around, it was where I was supposed to be. It was my in. And
Yeah,
then they made space for me to stay, which was, in my opinion, a huge blessing and a miracle and just confirmation that's where I was supposed to be.
yeah. It was God moving, right? It was
Yeah.
God opening a door because He knew what the next step and where the next place, but you needed to be in, right? And so,
Yeah.
we have to learn to look at what we've prayed for, and then when God gives it up to us, and it's like, this isn't exactly it, to go, okay, God, you're doing something, because if you didn't want me here, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be here. And just being able to have that attitude of gratitude that will feed our contentment and allow us, okay, in this place I need strength, so I'm going to be
Yeah.
joyful because I asked you for it. I've given it over to you. But Lord, you're doing something again, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
Um, what, like I said, you get to interview a lot of people, and
Mhm.
you have tell us about your different businesses, and what it is that, is really fulfilling for you right now, and what it is that you do.
Yeah, all of it. I like doing different things. I always have. Maybe I had an entrepreneurial spirit. I'm not sure, but I just like being able to be a part of the different pieces of the Christian music side of things, whether it be media and playing the music, or whether it's talking to artists about where they want to go next, and being able to hear their dreams. And I mean, now I've got a team of there's three of us with 1016, and so it's just exciting to see that growing as well, and that it's still going on after 11 years. And we've worked with some incredible people who have incredible just desire to serve the Lord through their music. And so I just really love that part of what I do. I call it creating the triple win. So if I can find an artist with my team who has the heart to serve, who has great talent, who's going to be good for radio, and then their song works for radio. So now it's a win for the stations because there's a song that's being serviced to them that fits for their audience. The artist is getting placement on radio, so a win for them, and that's a win for our team. So that's always been my mentality is that triple win,
Yeah,
making sure that everybody can walk away feeling like they're living out their purpose and their passion.
I love that. I love that. And so you said you do 1016, the Why Me project. What is
Yes.
that about?
Yeah, so Why Me Project was actually an idea that Johnny Rocket came up with, and then we wanted to do a podcast, but we didn't have any opportunity, and so I'd connected with Matt Kane, who is the president of White Oaks Communications, who now I work for, which is it's ironic how everything kind of end up coming together in a beautiful way. But they were looking for podcast content for their platform called Faith Strong Today, and so they said, "Hey, do you want to have a podcast?" And I thought, I don't know if I have the time to do a podcast, but I know someone who has an idea for a podcast, and if we did it together, then it divides up the work, and then we can do an extension of our show, because doing the morning show, often you have maybe 5 minutes to interview somebody, or you talk to them for 10 minutes but you condense it to five. And we wanted to make sure that we got more of the stories, so this was just a great extension of our morning show. And so I pitched the idea, we got the two thumbs up, and I think in April we're heading into season 5.
Oh, yay. Congratulations. And
Thank you.
5 of telling stories.
Yeah.
The whole story of the Bible is God's story with the Israelites and God's story with the Gentiles and just God's story of faithfulness in our lives. And so he's a storyteller and he wants us
Yeah.
to be a storyteller, right? He wants
Yeah.
us to be able to say, this is how God has worked in my life, right?
Yeah.
And you get to bring that out. And then you said you had one more thing that you did. Um, was there another company or another
Oh,
avenue?
I'm like, I always forget the other podcast that I do, Good Company. So that's a part of
Exactly.
Joy Radio Toronto. So it's a program between 5 and 6, Monday through Friday, also streaming. So it's available whenever, wherever. And it's just an opportunity for me to keep my hand in the jar of being on air and in radio. And I love it. So it's just a lot of fun hanging out with the listeners in the GTA.
Wow. Like, so as you can see, Holly does a lot. Like I said, when I introduced her, she's walking in her purpose and she's walking in her passions. And that is to bring out the best in other people and to share the story of God's faithfulness through music, through hearing other people's stories and letting them share it, and through just being who she is as a wife, as a mother, in her life. And so I thank you for joining us today and for sharing a little bit of your story. I mean, I laughed. I felt some joy. I've made a
Good.
connection. So I know that our listeners are making a joy connection. Is there anything that you would like to leave them with on the idea of joy that you feel you need to hold on to this? You need to, be encouraged
Mhm.
by this.
Yeah, I think sometimes if you're going through a rough situation, you feel like you can't have joy, because maybe having joy is not respecting somebody, or maybe it's not honoring somebody. Maybe you're going through a terrible loss in your family, and you think, I can't have joy because I'm going through this grief. And our emotions are complex. And I feel like even in those dark situations, you can still find joy. It's not easy, but emotions can coexist. And to not hold on to the grief because you feel like you can't have joy. But someone once explained to me that they felt blessed to be able to grieve because that was something that was given to them. I'm explaining it horribly, but they just had a very interesting perspective on grief. And I just feel as a culture, we don't grieve well. So I just want to encourage you that no matter what you're going through, you can still find moments of joy and you don't have to feel guilty about it. And joy and grief can coexist.
Yes, and that's that's the secret of life.
Yeah.
We need the Lord's strength, we need his joy. So it has to coexist when
Yeah.
we're going through hurt and grief and those things. So
Yeah.
listen to Holly, people, and her encouragement, and make sure that you allow your feelings to coexist with one another and
Yeah.
to hold on to the Lord and allow him to speak to your places that need joy so that you can move in strength. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great
Oh,
conversation. And
thank you so much.
make sure that you all go and seek Holly out so you can listen to Good Company, so you can listen to the Why Me Project, so you can listen to what it is that she puts out to you. And if you need anybody to chat with and concerning your future and your dreams in music or anything else, Holly is somebody to connect with. And so you don't want to leave her sitting here. This is why I interviewed her today, so that you will know who she is and know that she's in your corner. So if you need
Mhm.
anything, just seek out Miss Holly Taylor, and we are glad that you were with us today. Thanks
Thank
everybody
you.
for joining us. Have a good night. God bless you all.